Greetings, everyone. I'm Taya Bolton, producer of Aspire Conversations, and I want to welcome you back to another session. Aspire Conversations is a solution focused series dedicated to addressing systemic injustices that impact the Black business community. This series was birthed out of the Black Lives Matter movement. For Aspire, with the niche in serving the Black business community, we decided to make this a Black Businesses Matter movement. These sessions will always include moderators and panelists who are policymakers, small business owners, and other community leaders. At the end of each session, there will be a call to action. We ask that you join us in whatever way is feasible for you. Make sure you share it with your network. Make sure that you are aligning, and we want to make sure that you have a seat at the table. That's why we do these live. Ask your questions, gather your network, and get the information you need so that we can transform together, okay? The time is absolutely now. For future sessions of these, if you want to get registered or learn more about them or read our statement, you can go online through Aspire, aspirecommunitycapital.org/Aspire Conversations. And without any further ado, I want to go ahead and get things turned over to the CEO of Aspire, Mr. Manuel Campbell.
And thank you, Taya, for that wonderful introduction. And it's a pleasure to see everyone on Facebook Live. And we have an amazing panel here today. The focus of the conversation is really around access to capital and community resources that are available to our Black business owners in our community. And we just really want to emphasize just the need by bringing in this dynamic panelist group, just the need and the fundamental resources, as well as some of the strategies and techniques that need to be deployed by your own businesses as you pursue and seek access to capital to start and or grow your business. And it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator for today, Ms. Ralphine Caldwell. Ralphine is a dear friend of mine, and I consider to be one of my soldiers in this fight and battle to certainly build strong Black businesses in our community. And Ralphine is the first executive director of the New Charlotte Office of the Local Initiative to Support Businesses in our community. Specifically, it's the Local Initiative Support Corporation, which is affectionately known as LISC. LISC is one of the country's largest CDFI social enterprises, supporting projects and programs to revitalize communities and bring greater economic opportunity to residents. Ralphine oversees LISC Charlotte's efforts to expand affordable housing and implement comprehensive community development programs in the Metro Charlotte area. So it's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Ralphine Caldwell to all of you, and she will introduce our amazing panelists and guests.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. First of all, good afternoon. Thank you, everyone, to Aspire Community Capital, first and foremost, for allowing me to actually moderate this incredible panel. LISC Charlotte is a supporter of Aspire Community Capital and the incredible work that they're doing in our communities. We are so excited for them to be one of our partners, so we're really excited about that. And today we're going to touch on a few different things, and we're going to actually leave the session today with a wish list, things that we know that we want to work on as we're moving forward to be able to assist our African-American entrepreneurs and businesses to thrive and succeed, particularly in this pandemic. We have an incredible panel who I'm going to let them introduce themselves here today, who's going to talk to you a little bit about our history. They're going to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that are out there as far as programs that are out there for our businesses. And then we're going to talk about what else needs to be done. We have to have, we got to put some things on the table as to how our minority businesses are faring in this pandemic and how they can move forward in the future, particularly in 2021, as we hopefully come out of this pandemic. So we got a lot of exciting things we're going to talk about today. I first want to start and have the panel to introduce themselves. We're going to start with Linwood Long, who's with BV&L Associates. Linwood, if you want to introduce yourself to the community, please.
And then we'll make sure you're not muted.
One of the first things we have to do is unmute. But let me thank you, Ralphine, for kicking this off. But let me also congratulate Aspire for being outside of the box and having this conversation. Two things I would like to say in terms of introduction. One is I'm the CEO of BVNL Associate, Community Economic Development Focus. But more importantly, and very special to me, is I serve as executive administrator of the African American Alliance of CDFI CEOs. That's a passion, and that's something that I'm very proud that we are 41 strong and went live yesterday. So that's me.
All right, thank you, Linwood. I appreciate that. Our next panelist is David Sharp. David is with Up Community Fund. David.
Great. Pleasure to be here. Manuel, I've known for a long time and appreciate the work that that the group is doing here. You know, I know Manuel, I've been working on this in this arena when it wasn't very popular. It seems to be popular these days, but we remember the days when no one wanted to talk about it but us. And so I serve as CEO of the Up Community Fund. We are a $19 million loan fund. We fund in the Southeast. To date, we have funded 16 companies. 100% of the portfolio is African-American business owners. And a primary theme and focus for us, well, we've put about $9 million out so far. And the primary focus for us is about establishing and creating and building wealth, as well as job creation for those entrepreneurs. So it's capital, it's a ton of technical assistance, so advisory services, and so we're operating with entrepreneurs of color on a daily basis in the trenches.
Okay, thank you so much, David. Our next panelist is Joanne Schaefers. Joanne is with the Small Business Administration. Joanne.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Joanne Schaefers. I'm a business opportunity specialist. I work for the U.S. Small Business Administration. And the SBA, what we do is we assist small business or individuals who want to start a business, who want to take their business to another level, who wants to get assistance in loans, basically the various types of loans that we had. And I know you all heard about the PPP loan, the very popular one. And also we do contracting assistance as well, and also provide counseling. In my capacity, I do work with small businesses. One-on-one, my portfolio consists of socially and economically disadvantaged small businesses certified to do business with the federal government. And I help them navigate the program, the 9 years they're in the program, to get contracts to build their businesses. And thank you. And I want to thank Aspire for this platform.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. So we're going to go ahead and get started. One of the things that I feel like that we need to touch on is our history. In order for us to solve a problem, we got to know our history. We got to know where we came from, right? So I think it's important for the audience to know. Let's talk about the plight of our Black businesses over the years, and let's be candid. Let's have this conversation. I think that sometimes we think that people know, and they don't understand, what have the challenges of African-American entrepreneurs. So can we talk a little bit about that, and can we break that down a little bit for our audience, for our viewing audience? Linwood, do you want to go first? You're on mute, Linwood.
Yeah, I get to it. Yeah, if we walk down memory lane, we can recall with pride how we used to thrive. There was a Black Wall Street, right? And each urban area, we own businesses, we own hotels, we own financial institutions, we own insurance companies, and we literally had the capital to fund our small businesses, right? So that's a great sense of pride. That is a landmark that we should never forget, because we've been there. And so you may want to ask, well, what happened? Well, a number of things happened, and this is a candid conversation. So the banking institution, as well as the social economic framework of America, failed us, right? And we began to have all kinds of problems related to systemic racism, institutional racism, and all those things combined that really wiped out the economic gains that we had. And we've been suffering from that ever since. That is my take on it. And so I will give you that live and real.
Okay, David, or
Yeah.
Joanne, either one of
Yeah.
you want to add something to that as well?
Yeah, sure. I mean, again, not quite sure what point in time, but really, if you go back, I mean, we're of African descent, and and us as Africans, primarily, we come from a land of prosperity. I mean, if you look at ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, if you look at Ghana, Mali, Sangha, you look at Mansa Musa. I mean, in today's terms, was considered the richest man ever. And so, wealth and creating wealth is not something that's new to us fundamentally. Obviously, if we come to America, things have changed for us. But one of the interesting things for me is that, if you think about money and what it is, money used to be a storehouse of value. It used to be able to take it to the bank and exchange it for something that was real. Money now is fundamentally an idea. And so when it got switched for something that was real, for something that was philosophical, the idea in our minds as Black people historically is, we used to, like Linwood mentioned during Black Wall Street, we understood the power of a dollar because dollars, bounced over 6 times within the community before it ever left. So a small amount of money with a lot of velocity within a community can have significant impact. Today, money barely bounces 1 time in our community. So fundamentally, what does that mean is that as we're thinking about money from a social justice standpoint, we speak with what's in our wallet. There are policies that, are in place that benefit us, that don't benefit us. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think the money that we spend on a day-to-day basis is how we extend our voice in our communities in terms of, how we empower or disenfranchise ourselves. So this notion of the history of how we got here, you can't separate the history of how our education or miseducation has tied into our current situation.
Very good.
Wonderful. Joanne, do you want to add anything to that?
I think she's muted.
Joanne, you're muted.
I agree with David and Linwood stated. They've covered a lot of, bases for, the past and then coming forward too. And then as David mentioned too, coming forward is that money, funding, equity, having the equity, and another key thing too, having the resources out there. Basically making sure that the resources are, divided out to the, to the people and getting the information disseminated to the communities. And knowledge is valuable if you know exactly how to use it.
Okay, thank you for that. So let's take it a bit further. Given what we know about our history of the African American community as far as our entrepreneurs, how can we cultivate more equity in the Black ecosystem? How can we do that? And I'll start. David, do you want to start with that?
So how do we create the equity in the ecosystem? I would say first and foremost that one, the way that we looked at entrepreneurship within our communities was primarily as a means of necessity, right? I mean, coming out of slavery and moving into the Reconstruction period going forward, it was like, well, you couldn't get a job, for the most part. So you created something and you built something, as, we started having opportunities for jobs, quote unquote, our talented 10th, went into corporate America and we never saw them again, and they never really came back to the community to empower. So this notion of equity is having a common theme for all of us whether you're a high-powered corporate executive, whether you're, a guy that's a tradesman, working on a crew, out on some project somewhere, whether you're an educator, regardless of what your field is, to acknowledge the fact that there's a common theme here and that we all are in this together. Some are white collar, some are blue collar. It doesn't matter what collar you have. At the end of the day, it's about trying to empower our community. And so I think also from the standpoint of how we educate and empower our children, I know we talk a lot about the American dream, but I think something that's really important that we instill is that, going to school to get a good education, to get a good job, to retire, that may be the path for some of us, but for most of us, that's not going to be the path going forward. And so we have to really think about investing in ourselves to recognize that we are our best solution, and really take that seriously. And to me, that is a form of, it's not necessarily money per se, but it is a form of currency or value. And that's what we ultimately need to invest in each other and invest in our young people, as well as our elders, to make sure that the knowledge that they've learned, they find a way to give it back, to the generations that come behind them.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks for sharing that. Joanne or Linwood, would you like to add anything to that, to David's conversation?
This is Joanne. I would like to state too, also, as we've been told that small businesses hire our employees, most of the employees are, nationwide, basically. And it's increasing opportunities for individuals to own small businesses, those who are viable and who has the capability and whatnot, and then finding a network that can help them, to be resources in order to create their small businesses and, help them take off with that small business and definitely keep them going also. Because sometimes you might have small business that may open and not thrive. So you want to basically kind of like have resources to help those small businesses to keep going and moving along. And then that can definitely increase the ecosystem of equity in our communities.
Yeah, let me tag on something that David said and sort of the history piece. And I hope the audience capture that, and that is there used to be a time we would recycle our money, right? Almost 6 times as I can use David's number. But now we do it one time, right? Money in, money out. We have we spend about $1 trillion a year, right? And it is in this sociological term, conspicuous consumption, that we're spending money not in things that build our ecosystem, but in many ways build our egos and build our status. If we're gonna be serious about building a Black economic development, or business development ecosystem, we really gonna have to change our mindset, right? That we're gonna have to start thinking about how do we build institutions that serve us. Let me give you an example. David is in Charlotte. He indicated he has a $19 million loan fund that, get this, primarily African Americans, right? And so how do we begin to invest in those institutions that are serving us? M&F Bank, and all of these institutions suffer, right? We're losing financial institutions because we do not support them, right? And so we're gonna have to really come up with a different mindset. We're gonna have to quit talking and start doing. We're gonna and we're gonna need to begin to invest in those institutions that serve us. And that's not a radical thing. We used to do it. It's just a mindset around economics, around education, but more importantly, around this ecosystem of building our communities so that we can serve and edify each other in our community. Because if we do that, our community will grow. And then this wealth gap that's very
Mhm.
pronounced, we can see a change in that.
Wonderful, wonderful. So in kind of piggybacking off of that, we know that, you know, we need to do a better job of supporting each other, because that's basically what you've all implied, right? So in doing so, what do we feel like is, and this could be a very loaded question, but what do we feel like is preventing us from doing that? Is it the education piece of knowing what's out there, knowing the different programs that are out there, the different, like you said, David has a great fund, the SBA has, you know, programs that you all have. So what do we think is the reason for that?
Well, just let me say this briefly, and that's a great question. But if you look at, if you take that question and just apply it to our small businesses, African-American small businesses, if you look at the report that was done a couple of years ago, and I think that's still a sort of guide stone, a gold star report for Black businesses and for the Black community. It was published by the Association for Enterprise Opportunity, and the tapestry of Black business ownership in America. And it speaks to those areas that handicap Black business growth. We heard this word equity. We don't have any equity, right? You're in the housing business. You know that in 2008, we saw when the economic crisis hit, the meltdown was upon us. Our home ownership went down almost 30%. And so, one, we don't have equity. Two, because we don't have equity, we don't have collateral. Thirdly, in this report, they talk about a lack of trust. Those that make financial decisions around access to capital, capital for us, do not look at it from the lenses of the total picture. They look at it in terms of just historically, you know, it's just, I'm gonna say it like it is. It's just racism that prevents some of this stuff. It is, you know, a rose by, I tell folks, rose by any other name is not necessarily a rose, right? And so we have to be real and call it like it is, and begin to demand those in policy position to be real and dealing face on with the barriers that impede our progress in business development.
Wonderful. So Linwood, you mentioned a report, the Enterprise report. I want to make sure that if we're mentioning reports that maybe we can do a link to be able to get that to the viewers so that they can be able to refer back to that, because that's a great that is a great report.
Oh, it is.
Report.
It is.
So it's great reading for our businesses, particularly as those that are needing to use that information to be able to apply for funding or for grants or however, and they're looking for stats in regards to our African-American small businesses. That would be a great report. Do you agree, Linwood?
Oh, I agree. And because one of the points made, then I'll be done. One of the points made is that, and we said it before, small businesses hire employees. It is documented in this report that one of the pathways to wealth creation in our community is that as Black businesses grow in scale, Black businesses tend to hire Black folks, right? And so when they hire, and they hire in our community, we're going to see a decline in the unemployment rate. We're going to see a number of things that happen that stabilize our community. And so this is a great book. Maybe Ty can post a link to that. It's the Association for Economic Opportunity, AEO, out of Washington, D.C. Great report, led by a strong Black woman.
Wonderful, wonderful. So we're going to make sure that report gets posted, because I think it's important as the viewers are listening to this great panel, but also having some resources to be able to refer back to. So we'll make sure that report gets posted as well. Taya, I'll make sure of that as well. So let's
Thank you.
go. I do want to go into now that we've kind of talked a little bit about, we talked about history and where we are as far as the Black ecosystem. Now let's talk about what you're doing yourselves in your shops. Linwood, you talked about the Alliance and CDFIs, which I know is a passion of yours for sure. So we want you to talk about that and talk about your what you're doing. David, you have your fund, but you have a lot of other things that you're offering. So we definitely want the viewing audience to be able to hear what you have as well. And then Joanne, I think it's going to be really important from the Small Business Administration for folks to know what you all have in the pipeline, what are things that are going to be coming up, particularly as it relates to, we're obviously still in COVID. So how is that going to affect some of the things that you all are doing and going to be able to offer? So Linwood, we'll start with you and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, thank you. The African American, the Alliance is really something that all of us should be aware of in terms of its work. And I think its focus primarily is around how do we deal with this whole notion of wealth gap, right? Because we suffer from trickle down, right? From everything is trickle down. And so the focus upon wealth creation, and then what is the tools that the Alliance is using to deal with it. One of them is this whole area of public policy. How do we begin to have a voice that impact changes in public policy that either support the effort we're doing, policies that prevent, because so policy can be double-edged, can be a double-edged sword. It can prevent, or it can be something that promote. The second thing that's very important to us is the creation of a digital business directory of Black businesses that across this nation that we want to have eventually on our website, a digital directory where you could go to it and say that in Charlotte, in Raleigh, or wherever, in Mississippi, that, for this business, for this need, there's a Black business that's been vetted, which is very important. Again, the notion that we can help each other grow and thrive. And the third area, I think, is just building the capacity of the members within the CDFI industry, led by Blacks, who often serve communities that look like them, but suffer from the same resource and inequalities of the communities they serve. And so that's where our focus is.
Okay, Linwood, David, before you start, Linwood, if you could, I don't want the audience to assume that the audience knows what a CDFI is. So can you explain that and really explain the importance of a CDFI and why it's so important, particularly for our underserved communities? Because I know that a lot of people have heard this term CDFI,
Right.
particularly in the past couple of weeks with everything going on the political realm, right? But
Right.
I think it's important for people to understand, and we not assume that they know what a CDFI is and why it's so important to invest in CDFIs.
Good. Okay. Thank you for that. CDFIs, Community Development Financial Institutions, actually had its genesis during the President Bill Clinton days. It's sort of tied to the Community Development Financial Institution Fund, which is housed in the Department of Treasury, and those organizations certified as by Department of Treasury that typically focus upon work in underserved communities. Many of them are communities of color. They're involved in housing, they're involved in economic development, new market tax credit, and a number in counseling programs. But most of them actually are loan funds. And the great takeaway about CDFIs is that they're in the community. Most time they're the board, most of them have boards, and the boards typically most instances look like the community. And that's important. They are very indigenous to the community. They serve the community and they work on behalf of the community. And so that the great takeaway is that when you think about a CDFI, you think about a community-based organization, mostly, right? You have some regional and some national CDFIs, but many of those do not have the interest of the Black community. But most of your CDFIs, especially in North Carolina, and I love those in North Carolina, are really community rooted and based and focused on trying to build and edify our community. And I hope that was helpful.
Very, very. No, we just want to make sure that everyone understands the importance of a CDFI and the reason that you're emphasizing that. So thank you so much for that. So
thank you.
You have some great things happening, great programs. Can you talk a little bit about that? And we want to make sure that the audience knows what you're offering and how to be able to get in touch with you or your team.
Right. So the Up Community Fund, since we're talking about CDFIs, we actually applied in September to become a CDFI ourselves. Most CDFIs are usually nonprofit organizations. Mm-hmm. However, we are a for-profit organization that's applying to become a CDFI. For us, one of the points was, if you want us to focus on creating wealth for everyone in our portfolio, it kind of makes sense that, we should be pursuing that for ourselves as well, right? To make it a win-win kind of scenario. And so, our kind of funder universe, embraces that concept and that theme. So primarily what we do is we focus with companies that generate revenues of a minimum of about $300,000 and up. Probably, and we're providing capital anywhere between $250,000 to $1 million and some change. What we found in the work that we've done so far is that when we first started doing this work, it was very interesting. I assumed that there would be more white collar versus blue collar businesses that fit that threshold. However, what we found was that there are more blue collar than white collar businesses that fit that threshold. And so, what does that mean in basic language? The PhD in engineering is not necessarily the business owner. It's the guy who has been a tradesman, and is a master electrician, and he's going out and he's pursuing work, right? And it's like, it was a very interesting kind of observation for us as we started going through this process, which I think when we talk more about what types of businesses are being developed and what does that look like, I'll want to provide more comments there. And so for us, our model is we're very hands-on with our business owners, and our focus is, once you become a partner with us, our focus is to make you wealthy. Our focus is to look at where the gaps are within your organization and to really try to take a more of a hands-on approach to help you get there. We haven't quite figured out how to make it at scale, but we recognize that it's super hands-on. But we figure if we can help one business grow and hire more people, then we're doing our part. And the better we get at it, the more we're able to grow. And at $19 million of a loan fund, just for the audience, in one respect, it might sound like a lot, but in the world of financial institutions, we're like super teeny. So we're very, very small relative to other institutions. So what we do is we try to focus on providing flexible capital as opposed to it being a very rigid process, and the yay and nay decision is based on what the formulas and the ratios look like. Although we look at that, at the end of the day, we're really trying to take a more of a consultative, hands-on approach to say, okay, is there enough of a pathway here? Does the entrepreneur and their team, does it make sense that do they get where they're trying to go? Are they trainable? Are they receptive? Are they willing to get to the next level and acknowledge where they currently are? And are they in a good business or industry that actually makes sense for them to grow? And we're trying to find organizations that we really can work with to help them get there. So we can provide the flexible financing, and we call it the advisory services or technical assistance. That's one particular point. When we talked about the PPP, what's interesting is over 85% of the companies in our portfolio got PPP. We basically rolled up our sleeves and did a lot of the legwork for them. But with us, we become a partner with you. So we consider that to be part of our job. That's one major thing that we're doing, here at the Upfund. And what's really interesting for me, and a lot of that work personally as the CEO and the one who's been involved in this work day to day, I realized that a lot of this is about mindset. And so one of the things that I've created has kind of been something of interest to me. A person told me a long time ago, how can you teach our community about money and wealth if they don't have money and wealth? And so if you can figure out how to do that, then you're onto something. So we created an entity called the David Sharp. And as I'm launching over the next 2 weeks, called the Wealth Mindset course. And so what it's really designed to focus on is really recognizing the true value, the God-given talents and skills and attributes that we have as individuals, and recognizing that that's our true form of currency, not necessarily what you got in your wallet. Because if you look at the success of people, most people that are successful, they don't quite say it this way, but they'll spend more time focusing on cultivating their skills and talents. And that converts into money, as opposed to, let me get some money first and then everything will work itself out. And so we try to, that's another kind of thing that I've done, because I recognize, although we got 16 companies in our portfolio and our goal is to get to 100, there's still plenty of people that we'll never touch in the context of the Upfund. So for us, it was really important for me to try to identify a mechanism that I can touch individuals. So those are kind of two interesting things that we're working on a day-to-day basis.
Okay, thanks so much, David. So what I heard is flexible capital that you have. Obviously, you offer the technical assistance, and you did so, of course, with PPP, but just bringing, looks like bringing the businesses into your portfolio. That's something that you offer. And then the wealth mindset sounds like is it a series, David, or?
It's no. It's a kind of a 4-module course that it's going to be on Teachable. We produced it, and it'll be available in a couple of weeks. And so that's the thing. Can I go back to one other thing real quick, please?
Absolutely.
I think it's very important that I overlooked. With respect to the Upfund, one of the things that's really powerful there is that what we've learned is that a lot of times our entrepreneurs fall victim to the same mistakes that an entrepreneur previously went through. So when a company becomes part of our ecosystem, what we're trying to do is link companies together within the portfolio. Ideally, how can you do business together? How can you collaborate on contracts together? Oh, if you're trying to find insurance, let me talk to every company in the portfolio to see who they're using for insurance. Who should you stay away from? What are your premiums? Maybe we can find a better source. Oh, you need a mechanic to work on a truck. Well, guess what? We got 3 trucking companies in the portfolio. Let's try to figure out what lessons have they learned so that you don't have to go through the same things. Because if we don't have enough capital, you don't have enough time to pivot and make those mistakes and try to find a way to recover. So what we're trying to do is minimize those mistakes, because we're all going to go through them as we're going through the entrepreneurial journey. But how do we minimize those? So we're trying to create, we kind of call it the Up Community Fund Village, which is still kind of conceptual. We're still kind of building that, but it's how do we now make sure that you get the benefit of what the institutional knowledge is within the portfolio, and how do we help each other grow? So there's a form of collaboration, Linwood, to go back to, if money can bounce within our portfolio, from our perspective, that's a 2020 version of Black Wall Street.
Right. Wonderful. So Joanne, you have some great things that are happening and programs that are going to be coming up. So do you want to talk a little bit about that as well?
Yes, I would like to start with the PPP loan. As everyone knew about the PPP loan, those funds have been dispersed. But however, there is a, I guess, another CARES Act package being, I guess, being pending approval in Congress at this time. So, and we're hoping that there be more funding through this program. But right now, SBA is going through the process of working with the lenders on how to forgive those loans at this time. But however, we hope that there be another package for other small businesses. And the next loan I would like to speak about is the economic injury disaster loan. This loan is ongoing at this time. And for small businesses, the interest rate is 2.75. And for no, sorry, 3.75, and nonprofits is 2.75. So nonprofits are able to get a loan if they qualify and they're eligible to get funding through this program. And another funding program is the SBA Express Loan, which goes up to $25,000. It's a bridge loan through SBA, and that can be provided if and what it is that SBA, we are guarantees of the loans. We do not provide loans, but however, the only loan the SBA do provide is the EIDL loan, the economic injury disaster loan. That's the only funding program that SBA do provide loans for directly. But the other loans the SBA have, which goes from $500 to 5.5 million, is guaranteed by SBA. And there is also an SBA debt relief loan. If there is a small business that already has a loan through SBA 7A loan or a 504 loan, currently SBA can pay that loan for 6 months. So they can pay back the loan for 6 months for that loan for that individual who has that loan. And also, I would like to state too that SBA has surety loans if anyone's interested in doing business, any construction businesses and you need surety bonds, SBA do have surety bond loans funding as well. And as I work in the 8A program, and so the 8A program in my portfolio, I do have small businesses, and they do get these surety loans, which provides assistance to these small businesses for contracting. But as everyone knows, the federal government already have policies and regulations in place. So there are no flexibilities on anything. You just basically have to qualify for these types of fundings and these assistance. And also to assist small business further, SBA do have resource partners. We have a Women Business Center of Charlotte. They can assist small businesses who are starting the business or who wants to get a loan or expanding their business. We also have our SCORE counselors. They also provide one-on-one counseling to small businesses who want to start a business. If you want to create a business plan, you can get that assistance as well. And we also have the Veteran Business Outreach Center, which is called the VBOP for veterans. They're located throughout North Carolina if you need that assistance. And also the Small Business Technical Development Center. And this to help businesses to take their company to another level or who need assistance on one-on-one counseling. So these are all great resources for small businesses in place to help them get funding, or if they want to go into federal contracting, or if they would like to do, I guess, take their business to another level for marketing strategies. Maybe that you might want to do international trade, maybe. There are assistance provided through SBA, but through those programs for small businesses or individuals.
Wonderful. Thank you. And, so for the economic injury disaster, which was established because of COVID, correct?
Yes, right, absolutely.
It goes up to what amount? So for our viewing audience.
Well, at this time, we have been seeing loans going up to $150,000 being given to small businesses. But however, the loans may go higher. But at this time, banks are being more restricted, and SBA are kind of like looking to see if individuals can repay these loans. So we are working with small businesses. If they can provide and show trends that they can pay back this money, then they can get a more higher loan.
Right. Wonderful. Wonderful. So what I would say is we'll have the links, Joanne, I believe all of that information on the website. So we'll make
Yes.
sure that we get the links to the viewing audience. We'll make sure we get the links for your sites, David, for your site as well. And Linwood making sure also for the Alliance of CDFIs. I think it's important for everyone to know where the CDFIs are located in their city, wherever people are viewing us from, hopefully from Charlotte and far as well. We want to make sure we give that information out to the audience. So I'm gonna, this is my final question, and then we're gonna turn it over to a Q&A for the audience. Let's talk about a wish list. Politics, we've got a lot happening in the administration right now. And my question to you is, what policies would you enact from a government policy perspective to address the lack of access to capital for Black businesses? What policies, and this is government policy, so if you had your wish list and you could just wave the wand and you could make, what would that be? And how would that look? Based off of this great conversation that we've had today, how would that look? And we're going to use this. And I think what I also want to say is whatever we say here, we're going to use this as a moving forward, right? Because we want, one of the things that Aspire wants to do is to have these type of candid conversations, but also have a takeaway, because otherwise it does us no good. We're just talking, right? So we want to have a takeaway from this as well. So how can we, what do you think from a government policy perspective that we need to start thinking about as we all are going about our day, talking to our elected officials, getting on the, doing our Capitol visits and all of that we do to be able to advocate for our communities? David, Linwood?
Yeah, right. Everybody's muted, so I'm gonna let the policy people go first.
Yeah, I do think that in this COVID environment and beyond, I have said and was said here that what small business need, especially African-American owned small business, is not more debt. And that one of the things we do,
I agree.
one of the things we do is say that debt capital is panacea to your recovery. And I say hogwash, right? Because I'm in a hole and you're giving me some temporary reprieve, but there's gonna come a day when my revenue may not catch up with where I can, catch up with the expenses. Plus I was already behind. And so I have more debt now to deal with. I think the revolutionary thing would look at a forgivable loan program or a grant program for small businesses that will allow them to recover and not have to worry about added debt. That's one piece. Another piece is that and I think with good intention, many local governments and even state will create these programs, but when they set them up, if you look at the criteria is almost against the many small business in our community. When you look at even the requirements around credit score, eligibility, assets, and all these things, the question is, when you go in there, how many of our small businesses can utilize, and David knows this very well from the struggle he has and the tension between having a strong portfolio and making sure that he doesn't lose money, but at the same time, this other side of the legend, how do we have small business in need and yet still maintain the strength of my portfolio? There's got to be some thinking around how do we deal with that tension.
Okay, all right, Joanne?
Yes, I agree with Mr. Linwood in regards to just wipe the debt away, and then let them start afresh. That's my opinion, but I work for the federal government, so we have rules and regulations, but that's what I think. And also, I think too, providing grants to help businesses, individuals to start businesses. to viable businesses, and get them educated and stay with them. Just don't like start them and just leave them out there hanging by themselves. Get them started, and then, continue on the process to ensure, that they're understanding, and then also that they, help them to thrive eventually, which will definitely help the Black community. And I just want to read something too. I just got a notification this morning, and it says agencies fail their moral and civic duties when they don't collect and disclose vital information that could direct resources where needed. And so engaging the communities themselves, going into the communities, engaging the stakeholders to go into the communities to help these African Americans or the Black communities to thrive and grow, because, and the bottom line is capital funding, so grants for everybody.
David.
Yeah. No, I mean, the grant concept makes all the sense in the world. I probably call it equity because at the end of the day, you don't want the grant funds to basically just, sit in somebody's pocket and support, promote lifestyle on a temporary basis.
Correct.
If you're going to get a chance to get access to the resource, treat it like it's equity, even though it may not represent a percentage. It may, but the focus is how do you take, well, fundamentally it is the equity / the grant, but second, I think how it gets applied, treat it like it's an equity infusion in the business, because if the business can become sustainable as a result of that infusion, then now you got sustainability in the business. So I definitely agree with the equity, the grant or equity piece. But if we got one silver bullet and everybody gets a grant, and then everybody, goes out and consumes and doesn't necessarily invest it back in the business, then it's like we got a double whammy, because we got it, we lost it, and now we really don't have anything to show for it. So making sure we get that capital, but then at the same time making sure that, there's some education there of how to best put it to work.
Okay. Thank you all so much. I think from what we take from that is grants would be better for businesses, particularly in this pandemic. So we all know that. Looking at it from an equity standpoint, David, I totally agree with that. But also looking at it from a standpoint of not just offering a grant, but really having that key emphasis placed on technical assistance and a business with thriving and being able to get through this pandemic. Because we can give them a grant, as you said, David, all day long, but we really to make sure that, when we do that they're also looking at how they're going to pivot during the pandemic. Some businesses are having to look at their whole business model and change their business model, from weren't offering takeout before, need to offer takeout now because we're in the middle of the pandemic. That's a pivot in your business model and a pivot in how you may order your supplies and things like that. So we definitely agree with that. And I think that's some good takeaways for this. I think we're at the end, and I think we're now at a Q&A. So I'm going to turn it back over. Thank you so much to this panel, incredible panel and great information. As I said, we will make sure that we give website and references during this session. We'll make sure that gets posted because it was a lot of great information. So we know if people write down information, we want you to take that with you. And I'm going to turn it over to Tyra.
Thank you so much. You all have been amazing and have shared so much valuable information. Ralphine, you made my job a whole lot easier. We got the call to action down. I'm going to bring you back for more of these sessions because you nailed it. And I just want to kind of go back and just say that it sounds like the call to action that we know we should kind of consider moving forward with is how do we provide more grants to the community, and how do we provide more education and technical assistance? And I know that LISC has been amazing with that. That's the primary initiative that you set forth. Aspire, certainly glad to be a partner there. We see all the other businesses that you're working with, and all of us small business owners who are applying and trying to be more attractive in those grant processes. we certainly are trying to be more of those recipients and do well with those funds as well. I want to make sure before we go and close out, that also make sure that everyone understands what Aspire offers by way of programming and technical assistance and access to capital. So we have 3 core programs. Most people come in through the 12-week group training, the Community Business Academy program, affectionately known as the CBA. And we do that, of course, now online because of COVID. They have an amazing instructor, and we make the gamification really fun so that they get it. So we have that, and they move from that program to what's called the Business Accelerator Services Program, or the BAS, and they get a 90-day action plan created specific to their business with one-on-one coaching. They move from that program to what actually Linwood is helping us to launch right now, which is the Access to Capital program, which will be fully launched in January. And the team meets every single week to really dig deep into how do we remove barriers for people to access the funding. We do not want to be a traditional bank where the criteria is not made for us. We got to understand what it is that we know are barriers just based on the people who we serve, our own experiences, and in removing some of those things. So we're using scorecards to rank. Did they go through our programming? We're looking at those trends. We're seeing what they've gone through and figuring out how to qualify them for micro lending from $2,500 to $10,000 initially. And then also, we're looking at who we collaborate with. We collaborate with almost everybody in this session. We're stronger together. We move more collectively and broader together. And so we are so grateful to have each and every one of you on this call. So I just want to go through a couple other things that I heard during the session. Linwood said, quit talking and start doing. And I think that's amazing to showcase that. We talked about mindset shifts, something else that we know is historically something that our communities have to work through. We talked about we are the best solution. And we know, and I said this before we got started, we know that we cannot wait for permission anymore. We have to take what we know to do and all of the collective resources that we have to make the change that we want to be and that we want to see for our own community. We talked about lack of trust, collateral, and equity, and just doing better and supporting one another, keeping those dollars in the community. So those are very awesome points that I want to make sure I just kind of highlighted for everybody before we depart. We don't have any questions on the thread right now, but I do want to encourage you, for all of the different resources that you shared, please send them to me after this so that we can get them posted in the Facebook thread where this Facebook Live session is. And we want to make sure we get that out to everybody. Manuel, do you have anything else?
Absolutely. And let me say, first and foremost, thank you, panelists. Thank you, Ralphine. Thank you, Linwood. Thank you, David. Thank you, Joanne. Taya, amazing job as usual. The only thing that I would add to the list of recommendations that I would love to see is some kind of initiative around suspending student debt to some level for those individuals that launch businesses. And I think that might help serve to David's point in the sense that he sees a lot of blue collar small business owners and not a lot of white collar business owners, in particular in the Black community. And every 30 something or 20 something potential entrepreneur, small business owners that I talk to, I always mention, man, you know what? I would love to start a business, but I got this student loan I got to pay off. And it's such a hindrance for them in so many different ways. So if we could create some type of mechanism where, maybe it's $1 for every dollar they commit to their business, that's $1 that is reduced from their student loan. Something of that nature creatively that I think could have some sustainability, but also directly influence, in particular, the Black community, I think would be hugely advantageous and beneficial. So anything like that, I think would be, certainly something to give notice and some intellectual capital to. And just in closing, thank you again, Ralphine. We look forward to having you back. I just love your energy and the excitement and the perspective that you bring to these conversations. And I look forward to seeing everyone. And when is our next Aspire conversation, Taya?
It is December 3rd, and I'll close us out with that. Please definitely go to the website, visit to see what the upcoming sessions are. We've got some great sessions talking about the role of church in the community and talking about something we really don't discuss very often, which is mental wellness and how to recognize that and how to cope and be a very successful and productive adult even when those things do exist. So let me also just thank our wonderful moderator and panelists, Ralphine, Linwood, Joanne, David, you were amazing. Manuel, thank you for your leadership and trusting me to produce these very important sessions for everybody. We want to also thank our sponsor, Start Us Up, which is a Kauffman Foundation initiative, and all of our community sponsors who help us spread the word about this series. Wells Fargo Foundation, Packard Place, Tech Labs, my brother's keeper, Charlotte Mecklenburg, Stiletto Bosch University, and to the amazing team of Aspire and to the board. We salute you. Thank you so much. Everyone, please have a fantastic day. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you in the next session. Peace.